Item 13, consideration and possible action designating representative to negotiate contract with the City of Guthrie for emergency management services and review a proposed contract.
Did you happen to bring a copy of the proposal that I had, or that I worked up when it was given to us back when I was the chairman of our board, and I went through and looked at what I thought was good. So basically what I had proposed was that all of the, I'm going to call them beads and trinkets that the City of Guthrie was giving us to provide them with a emergency services, and basically that's almost an entire manager. I mean, our emergency service officer spends quite a bit of time doing city work, and so what I talked up here, and it may be a bit excessive, but I did away with the internet, because I think we can afford our own internet for our employee, and the phone. I think we can afford a phone for our employee, because we got a new phone service and we're getting consolidated internet anyway here. So that made sense for that to go away. And so the city has to have an emergency management service agreement with somebody, or they have to hire their own emergency manager, right? I mean, by statute, they have to do that, okay? Right. So to contract with us for almost a little or nothing was a great service to them. And so what I proposed was that the city, that we could provide them with emergency services, but I thought it was going to take probably us hiring another person for us to get the full use out of our emergency manager that we have today, and I'll get to that in just a second. But for the city to agree to pay $60,000 a year for emergency service managed for the county to help them do that. That's a starting point for negotiation. I think that there's some room there, but certainly when you talk about a full-time employee, as you fellows already know, personnel costs are pretty high. And the $60,000, when you start talking about insurance, FICA, and all that other stuff, we're talking about paying somebody about $35,000 a year. That's a salary, and so that is a full-time person. They kind of need a full-time person to help them out with that stuff, it seems to me. So anyway, that's what I put down that the city ought to do. But when I talk about emergency services on the second page here, our county emergency management office, what we're supposed to be doing, right, is developing a severe storm spotters network designed to provide advanced early warning of impending severe weather threats to the community. That's one of David's responsibilities, and I think that's something that we really need to pick up on and try and enhance them. It's unfortunate David's not here to shake his head up and down or go no, but the second thing was community coordination with community officials, the Oklahoma Civil Defense Emergency Management as necessary for emergency management programs. Manage the operation and maintenance of the Emergency Operations Center. Our Emergency Operations Center is this little cubicle back there, right? And it's lined with glass, right? And so when we get those hailstorms throwing softball-sized hail through that glass, our Emergency Service Center is pretty much going to be taken out. And we've discussed a little bit with the sheriff's office over there, maybe finding a spot in a bunker or something over there, maybe in one of the cells. I don't know that we
jail
that we could utilize for that. Maybe that'd be a good spot.
There you go.
But it's kind of wet in some of those spots. But my point is, I think there's better places that we can have our emergency. If we're going to have a real emergency management office, there's better spots in that corner with all that window and glass. Establish and maintenance of countywide policies and communications for all employees and volunteers. That's for emergency services, right? Coordination and development and implementation of emergency operations plans within the county, including hazardous material incident. We don't, since I've been here, I'm not sure that we've done any drills or anything like that on hazardous material spills, that sort of stuff. We experienced one over in Payne County with a vehicle truck accident. Right, we spilled a couple hundred gallons of diesel out on the asphalt. It wasn't until then that I figured out. DEQ told me right quick, that's hazardous material. You got to clean that up. So, you know, our EOC didn't get involved with that, but it was in a different county. Theirs did, and it's kind of expensive to clean that stuff up, guys. Here's one that's really important. Preparation and distribution of a disaster preparedness educational material to the citizens of the county to provide information to the communities how best to prepare and protect themselves from consequences of a disaster. We just got this brand new alert system in, right? And we're paying for sirens and that sort of stuff as well. And we've talked about converting over from the siren system to this digital system. As you know, it's been pointed out to me, there's some people that are in digital system holes. I mean, you can't get cell service in some areas of our county. I've seen a few of them lately. But what we really need to do where we can is to get people more educated on taking advantage of that digital system. We don't have that many people using that system right now. I talked with Troy earlier, was it last week? You and I discussed that. How many do you remember off the top of your head how many we got?
The numbers are different depending on which part, because we have several thunderstorm watches or warnings.
Right.
I always go to the tornado warning. To me, that personally is the most critical. And I think right now it was 88 that were subscribed to the tornado warning.
Right.
Part.
And we need to do better than that. I mean, we really do, and that's kind of the responsibility of our emergency management office to get that word out, and help get people educated, and drive those numbers up. And then coordination, development, and implementation of disaster preparedness and training program for countywide employees and volunteers concerning their responsibilities during a declared emergency. This is drills and things like that. And this is an area I think we can also improve on. So I guess what I'm getting at here, y'all are welcome to look at that. What I'm getting at here is I think that we need to do a better job of helping David focus on areas that is required by statute. And all that stuff came out of the title that describes that job and the job duties and what we're supposed to be doing. In doing that, David really can't devote all of his time or the majority of his time to helping the city of Guthrie. They need the help. I mean, I'm not saying they don't, but we really need to look at a different relationship, I think, between our emergency management office and the city of Guthrie as far as that contract goes.
I mean, it sounds like to me we need to sit down and come up with a job description to help David along. But this is what we expect. I mean, this is almost a job description to me.
Yes, sir, I agree.
But anyway, I asked Troy to pull some numbers together. Currently, David's total budget with, you know, some maintenance and unemployment and all that, everything total together was $71,602.68. So then we get a EMPG grant yearly for $20,000 go toward that salary. So anyway, that knocked it down to $51,602, and currently Guthrie pays $14,251.72. With that being said, $1,251 of that is a telephone line. So $13,000 actually goes right to the contract. Then they just provide a phone that I was giving them credit for.
Right.
So currently they're paying 28%, we're paying 72%. I'm thinking it needs to be closer to 50-50, if anything.
Well, I guess my point is, and I don't disagree with that, But my point is, can we really afford David spending 50% of his time doing that? And when
Right.
when we really, there's things that we really need to get done here. So, the board action here is to designate a representative to negotiate a contract with the city. I'm gonna say something that may be a little bit unconventional, but I don't think that anyone on our board should be doing that. I think we should nominate the sheriff to do that negotiation for us.
On the spot.
Sorry to put you on the spot there. What? But that,
Were you listening?
I gave up negotiations when I left the city.
well, he's good at it, so he knows how to do that negotiation with the city.
I agree with you, Marvin, I do. The rural area has absolutely been growing exponentially. And the number of citizens we have out there are needing more services. They also need more communication, like you said. The City of Guthrie is starting to increase in population as well, and you do have to remember that we are also their commissioners. And so we do owe them something there, but I do believe that we're needing two people, and I do believe that Guthrie needs to step up to the plate and start doing their fair share of supporting our emergency management for the entire county. And I do believe that you're on the right track, and I do believe that we do need to renegotiate this contract.
Well, it sounds like to me we don't need to negotiate a contract at all. It sounds like to me we just need to cut our ties and we'll have ours and they get their own.
Then we don't represent our people.
I mean, that's
that
what
are
it
in
sounds
their
like.
city limits.
I'm actually okay with that.
If
Right.
we need to, I mean, you know,
Well, they've had it in the past where Guthrie's had their own, the
Right.
city of Guthrie's had their own.
Yeah.
And the county's had their own. I don't know what the reason for the merging of the two was. but
Cut
they-
cost.
Yeah, I'm sure it was cut cost, but I think, I think we're getting into a time of we're looking at the population of the county is growing exponentially, as we've all said, and so we got one guy trying to take care of all the county as well as the heavy, the densely populated city of Guthrie area, and I don't know that for us to try to put more stuff on David and still try to maintain the things he's currently doing, I mean, I think in some aspects we're setting him up for failure.
So we absolutely do need two people in our emergency, in the entire picture. We need at least two people.
Well,
If Guthrie
years ago,
wants to
we
do
had-
one, we can do one, fine and dandy. If they want to coordinate it, I wouldn't have a issue with that, going into one office.
So when you say we might, you're talking about the city of Guthrie and the county together.
Either that
Well, I mean,
or separate.
But, I mean, we've got other municipalities in the county as well, right? So,
Right.
we've got Crescent up there, they need emergency services. See, and that's where, I think David could help a little bit with the smaller communities, but a bigger one like Guthrie that takes up a lot
Good
of,
point.
a lot of cycles. I'm more inclined to, what Monty said, maybe it's time for them to kind of do their own thing.
I would certainly lean in that direction.
But, we've got Langston, we've got Coyle.
I don't know, Langston University, their chief is also their emergency manager. He kind of wears both hats.
Right.
But I think that, like I said, if we're continuing to put more stuff on David as far as education and stuff like that, then the things he's currently doing is going to suffer. Because I know that we can inundate him with things to do,
Right.
and set him up for failure if we're not careful.
Certainly.
And a
We
county
don't
our
want
size
that.
really should have two. I mean, honestly, if you want to, if you truly want a emergency management program that works the way it's supposed to, two would be optimal.
Sure, that's why I kind of tongue-in-cheek recommended the sheriff, but he is actually more knowledgeable about emergency services than, and not to take away from anybody on the board, but any anybody in this room. He's got the most
I
knowledge
mean, I'll help however I
and
can.
skill.
You've been in a lot of those exercises.
And so when we talk about
that
negotiating,
David was
you know, with the city on that kind of stuff, I think that's what this action is for. I think Sheriff Devereaux's the best person to represent our county in that negotiation. Yes, ma'am.
Well, here's what I'm gonna throw out as the person that has now heard all of this. I think the thing of it is, I think you have two issues to take your action and consider, if I'm hearing correctly. We either don't wanna negotiate, we say we're not gonna do a contract and we're ending it, which I've heard come out, or you want to negotiate and appoint someone to do it. I've heard both things come out.
Well, I think if we're gonna let Damon do it, and talk to them and see what they got on their mind and see what they think their best move would be, neither partner up with us and help hire an additional help. But just, it says that he negotiated the contract. I don't know that I would vote for the contract until I've seen it. I mean,
Well, exactly, I mean, you don't know what it's gonna do. I just was saying, we were hearing two directions that you were discussing.
Right.
but I don't have an issue with letting Damon visit with them. I mean, he's got a relationship with the city.
That's true.
Right. So what,
Yeah.
with,
Love hate.
the way the item's written, it says, action to designate representative to negotiate contract, right? And review a proposed contract. So the review would be, you know, something, whatever came back from the discussion, right, from Damon and the city, would come back to the board here, and that's kind of how I would see it, if that's something that you guys can live with.
So we want to table this?
Was that a motion?
That is a motion to ask Sheriff Devereaux to represent the county in negotiations with the City of Guthrie for emergency management
Do that on
services.
this. I'll second.
The item says designated representative.
Okay,
Yes. So I have a motion and a second, but I do have a little bit of discussion. Damon, are you okay with doing
Yeah, I'd be
that?
happy to try to work with the city and try to resolve, some of our issues to the best outcome for everybody.
Yeah. So I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.